Today is a proud day for those of us who have been involved in this for some time. I started my career with General Electric in the USA, and their position was we bring good things to life. And that's when I first came across CEX, but at the time there was no framework. So, you know, if only Nunwood had been around in those days, Jack Welch would have been a much nicer man. His mantra was just kill any competitor out there, and if you didn't, you got into big trouble. One of the things that I was very interested in when I came back to Ireland, this is about 91 when I came back, was how does Ireland compare, you know, with other countries in this whole CX space? And I used to do a lot of lecturing in the early days, and I would always start lectures with, guys, who got a great experience from an Irish brand this week? And it was just constantly the same. It was a wonderful question to ask. I mean, you know, did you or have you had an amazing experience in the last couple of months? And people would really want to dive in, and you could see the strain and the stress and the pain. And then, I'll come back to you on that, but I'll tell you, give me a shite experience. That was the Irish way in those times. And I think, you know, from my perspective, I was very, very keen to kind of get an indication, how do we compare? And I think what CEXi has answered the first question for us, which is, you know, we looked at, you know, this process, and I think when we first launched this, I always talked about, in Ireland we have, you know, we offer what I think is, you know, the good experience or a bad experience. Whereas you go to the US or the UK, they offer an appalling experience or an amazing experience. We were kind of stuck in between there. So our goal was kind of, you know, could we keep our poor experiences at this level and not fall backwards, but can we push ourselves out into the amazing space? And I think, you know, that's really what CEXi is about. This is the start of a movement, and it's so good to see you guys all here today. The answer to the question is, how do we compare? When I first saw these numbers, I was actually pleasantly surprised. You know, 7.06 versus the UK 7.25. I'm going, actually, that's not bad. You know, we're not too far behind. And then when you really understand those numbers, I mean, that's about 2 years. That's what it equates to. And if you look at the US, who are exceptional in this area, that's about a 4-year gap. And when you think about it, that's about right. But, you know, I think Ireland, my conversation with you this morning is about, you know, is there something that we can excel in here to push those boundaries? I think Ireland, you know, in the mid or early 90s, I remember, Jerry, you remember this, Jerry Culligan from Aircom, the whole call center development in this country. Ireland Inc. just got behind it, and we took over and we became kind of customer service experts around the world. And I was speaking to the chairlady, Dorothy O'Byrne, who used to work at Aircom during the week, and she said that Ireland is now recognized as an absolute leader in that position. A lot of the major corporations over here are developing programs in customer experience or call center, and it's not just answering phones, it's much more than that. And I said, what they're doing now is they're taking those programs and putting them all around the world. So, you know, Ireland got behind that movement. You know, it was at one stage employing over 100,000 people. So I think, you know, when you're a small country, something like CX might be something that we could push. So I kind of had a look at, you know, maybe just look at the pillars and say, you know, how does Ireland stand in some of these areas? And, you know, you take one of the more important ones, personalization. I think as a nation, you know, when I go abroad, people will always say, you know, they just love the Irish people. We're wonderful storytellers, we engage. I think we're the most incredible ambassadors when we go abroad. And that's something, you know, it's a key pillar that's out there. You look at time and effort. You know, you talk to people like the IDA and they will tell you that they probably have pretty much 90% of all technology leading companies in the CX space that are doing some wonderful work in that space, based here in Ireland. Surely we can leverage some of those skill sets in developing our positioning in that role. And then empathy, I think, again, the Irish are renowned in this. You know, the United Nations, the work that's been done in the Mediterranean over the last number of months, we get up, we deal with it. And I think from the world perspective, they look at the Irish and say, God, they are amazing and empathetic. Unfortunately, you have to look at the negative side. And then, you know, one of the key findings that we found in terms of expectations was that the Irish tend to overpromise and underdeliver. That's a clear finding that we've got from this year's report. And we've been unearthing that, and I think the core logic behind it would be Gerard O'Neill had spotted something that was quite interesting. Gerard, you were talking about marketing has kind of taken off. We're out of the recession, but we've left operations behind. We haven't kind of told them yet. So we're out there selling these wonderful messages, and operations are looking in at the door going, whoa, hold on. And that's true. I think you get a sense of that. So that's something that I think could be easily corrected in time. In terms of resolution, I've just never found the Irish being very strong in resolution. I stuck up the Notre Dame sign because, most of my time spent abroad, the Irish are all about beating the crap out of each other rather than fixing problems. That may be wrong, but I do think it's something that we really need to resolve. David mentioned that resolution is an opportunity to turn a bad experience into something amazing. And I think that's a huge learning for us all, and I think that will come through today loud and clear. And then just integrity, enough said. I've put that photograph up there, and I think we suffer as a nation for a whole range of different reasons. But I'm sure David would argue, or if there were other people from other countries, we all suffer, I think, as a brand in integrity. I would say, however, that when English politicians do something poor, they fall on their sword. They're pretty good about that. We haven't learned that yet, but there's a bit of work to be done in that space. So in terms of what can we leverage, I'm not going to dwell on this, but there are certain things that we really do excel in. I always talk about this well-traveled nation. We are an island, we are small. If we want to do something, we appreciate experiences all around the world. When you talk to other people from foreign lands, they just can't believe how well traveled we are. So we are touching some of the best experiences in the world every single year, and that can be leveraged. One of the things, I did a lot of work for Aer Lingus when I came back. We managed their frequent flyer program, and one of the key insights from that was we only had 250,000 members in their tab program. Some of you may remember that. And we segmented it down into prestige and elite and gold circle, etc. In our prestige group, we had 250 members. We were able to do work that no other airline in the world could do. We had photographs of our customers so that when you came on board, you were greeted by name. It's the same for Ireland Inc. We're a small nation, and I think that allows us to do some incredible work because of our universe size. And I would expect that that's something that hopefully CEXi can lead. The rest of that, I think you kind of would understand in terms of how it's been positioned. In terms of today, Inga is going to just introduce you to a whole range of different steps, etc., because we are going to break into groups fairly quickly. But before we kind of go into that space, I wanted to just share with you, I spotted a video recently that talked about a really good tip in terms of when you're talking about or exploring customer experience. And it talked about looking for bad ideas within your own corporations. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting approach. What's a bad idea? And what these guys were developing in their presentation was that he presented 3 different companies and kind of basically suggested that these were all, in our terms, incredibly poor ideas. If you take the first one there, here's a concept where you share things with your friends online, but when you type more than 140 characters, it cuts you off. I mean, that's not a great idea. And that's, they're now, Twitter are now, delivering 500 million tweets a day. It's phenomenal, their growth. The other one, a complete stranger picks you up in their car outside your house and offers you free candy. That was Uber, who are now doing close to 1 million passengers every single day. And my favorite, would you rent a room from a complete stranger? You met online and then you slept under their roof. Airbnb. If you think about the bad idea, it's not necessarily about the idea, it's about the experience that's going to come out of that. And I think as we have our discussions here today, think about the experience. And what this group were suggesting at the time was like, always be exploring new ground, those unknown needs of our consumers. And try and find ways within your organization to test them. But test them quickly. We've all heard about that, about fail fast, etc. But the beauty about it is, if you can get your testing down, even to 1 test a month, that's 12 new concepts from your customer experience process that you can do a year. That would be a phenomenal success. Focus on the wow, big rewards for little work, create stories that do the talking for you. And how do you know you're successful? When you can't stop smiling, you know you're there.